Hello everybody, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video, and today we've got a preview video of a quite unique looking tank. And it's basically if you would cut off this turret right here, change a tiny bit of the gun mantlet and plug it right on the Lorraine 50t hole and make the Lorraine 50t frontal hole quite some stronger. But yeah, today we are going to have a look at the AM or the Lorraine 50t. And as you can see, a little bit different turret shape, a much thicker frontal armor plate, and it's the Lorraine chassis otherwise. Like, this tank caught me and basically every other CC off guard, hence why I'm pretty certain most people didn't do anything about this tank yet. Interestingly enough, I already told you yesterday I was waiting for the 1.9.1 CT to become online. So we have access to the armor model of this tank, and now we have it, and this is why we are able to have a proper look at this tank. And yes, this is actually partially modeled in the armor model. Anyway, this tank looks very interesting, and in my opinion it could be fun, but it has one huge flaw which could basically kill the entire fun you could have in this vehicle. Also, this is not official. This is what Wargaming usually did themselves, and I just took one of the older pages or papers and just photoshopped in the missing data, so it's a little bit more convenient for you, for your viewing audience, when we are not just looking at all those paper stats right here. I hope you enjoy it, and if not, then we'll see what we can do otherwise. Again, my Photoshop skills are rather limited. But yeah, the tank comes with a 120mm gun, which has 400 alpha, 515 with HE, which is basically bog standard for a 120mm gun. 264 penetration, 308 with premium rounds, which are APC air rounds, and 65 with HE. Now comes the biggest flaw of this tank, a 15-second base reload time. This gives this tank a DPM of 1600. As far as I know, on tier 9, this is the single worst DPM by far on any tier 9 heavy tank. And this is absolutely insane in my opinion that it is this bad. As far as I know, I do think the G-Zor could in theory be on par with the DPM. But then again, we all know the G-Zor is basically known to be one of the worst tanks in the game, you know. Even the G-Zor, it looks like it has a roughly the same amount of base DPM. So again, you have as a frontline heavy tank the same DPM as the light tank, which is considered to be one of the worst in the game. Just to hammer that right in. The DPM of this tank is absolute garbage. However, I understand why this is absolute garbage when we have a look at the armor model, and as you probably already could see, the minus 10 degrees of gun depression. Its accuracy is 0.4 and its aim time is 3 seconds. The turret traverse is 26 degrees per second, which is pretty fast, and well, ammo capacity we have 40 rounds, and again the nice 10 degrees of gun depression and 15 degrees of gun elevation. Just to point this out, this is 2 degrees more gun depression than what we have on the normal AMX M4, MLE 51 and 54, because they both only come with 8 degrees of gun depression. When it comes to gun handling on the move, this tank has a gun handling comparable to the one of the ML2. And the turret turning is much more accurate, which gives it an accuracy of around the one of the E50. So it's highly snapshot potential when you are not moving your hull. And interestingly enough, look at this top speed. 50 kph and 15 kph reverse speed. 15 kph reverse is a little bit slow-ish, I would say, but 50 kph top speed with a 980 horsepower engine and 220 HP per ton. That is insanely good, and well compared with the armor of this tank, it will be very formidable to use. Like, you can zip around on the map as a heavy tank. Again, those are medium levels of mobility. To just again show this when we are going on some tier 9 medium tanks, for example the T55A, if this thing wouldn't lag, has worse HP per ton ratio, just saying, or it has, as far as I know, equal, because obviously those things add some weight to it. Same top speed as a T55A. Like, that is insanely good. Just to point that out again. 30 degrees of turret hull traverse is also pretty decent. But now, 1900 hit points is average or standard for fast tier 9 heavy tank. But now let's have a look at the armor. 155 on the front, 60 on the side and 40 on the rear, and 300 on the front of the turret. And this is going to look like this. This is the armor model. Again, this is why I waited with releasing this video, because now we have access to this. And as you can see, the upper front plate definitely got some weight and armor to it. 155, and the normal effective armor is around 277 millimeters, which is pretty strong if you asked me. Don't forget, on flat surfaces and from shooting from above, the armor starts to lose a lot of its effective armor, especially towards the pike nose. You can see angle of incidence, it's around 219 millimeters, meaning it will be pretty easy to penetrate for anything. But don't forget, this thing has 10 degrees of gun depression. So you probably can stand around like this, and then you have 280 up to 340 50 millimeters of effective armor. Like, this is insanely strong if you asked me. And we're just looking at the hull. A hull which is capable of 50 kph top speed. Now let's have a look at the turret, and you can see the gun mantlet is very, very oddly shaped and much different than what we know from the AMX M4. Again, the AMX M4, the tier 10 especially, has the huge issue that even though this is 300 millimeters thick, the gun mantlet, again, this 300 millimeter, this is 300 millimeter. Point is, the biggest issue is that most people can easily penetrate that. And that sucks, because as soon as you shoot gold rounds, you can get through there without any issue. Because it's just flat armor there. This is not the case of the Lorraine 50t. Look at this. Sharp angles, you can see an angle of incidence up to 400 millimeters. It's just 130 on this part sometimes, or at least this part right here, but it's insanely thick. Like, frontally speaking, I don't think it will be as easy to penetrate with premium rounds as the AMX M4 is. I highly doubt that this tank frontally will be easily penetrable. The only way I see this tank getting penetrated frontally is through this beard-ish part of the tank turret, which is 300 millimeters thick and fairly flat. Same goes for the turret ring. But then again, don't forget, this thing has 10 degrees of gun depression. This is also why I start to think this is the point why Wargaming decided to not give this tank, a good DPM, because look where the cupola is. It's all the way back here. All the way back here. And it's small. And again, here we have the cupola here, and look how much bigger this cupola is compared to the one we have here. Seriously, this cupola is no joke. It is so far back on a turret which has basically no other weak spot. So this is why I think Wargaming decided to give this tank such a doo-doo DPM. Because they think with better DPM, this tank would be the next Super Conqueror, but just better. Or the next Conqueror, but just better. Imagine, again, 10 degrees of gun depression, 50 kph top speed, and a turret with 300 millimeters of effective armor minimum. That is insane. That is insanely good. The issues this tank has, though, like the typical issues, like for example down here, you won't get penetrated there. 120 millimeters is too thick. But here we have 40 millimeters, 40 millimeters, 40 millimeters, 40 millimeters, 40 millimeters. And over here, 40 millimeters. So as soon as this tank tries to go over a hill or over a mountain, you can detract this tank frontally with damage when you have a 122 millimeter gun or higher. So yeah, this tank's armor on the first glance and even on the second glance is very, very strong. But you always have to face your hull frontally, because again, you have the pike nose shape. Which makes, for example, this hull a lot easier to use, because it doesn't matter if you're standing like this, this, or this. You don't have any positions which are worse. For example, here it's much easier to penetrate like this than, for example, it is like this, etc., because of the pike nose shape. However, from the side it will be still very hard to penetrate because of the acute angles and still the thickness of the armor plate. Thickness which, for example, the IS-3 cannot boast, or the Object 257, which has too steep of angles. Like, the armor is insane on this tank, in my opinion, frontally at least. So this is why I think this tank has such a bad DPM. To not make it a new Conqueror which is faster, which is more agile, and gives another hold down proof tank. 380 meters of view range is no issue. The signal range of 750 no one cares about. The crew is bad, the crew layout, because it doesn't reflect anything of the French tech tree. For example, this one uses 5 people, and the new one, the Lorraine 50t, only uses 4 people, with the commander being also the radio operator. So yeah, this is the Lorraine 50t. A very, very unique looking tank. It looks like a lot of fun because of the speed. It will be a ramming monster, so I'm pretty sure Edwin and Swatch will love this tank. But I don't know what is going to happen with this tank. Like, the aim time is a little bad, but the most important thing is the pretty bad DPM. Maybe Wargaming decides to give this tank 420 alpha and keep the DPM as is, so it would give this tank a little bit more of a unique-ish play style. But the biggest issue still will be that this thing is a hold-down monstrum. Like, it basically removes the weak spots or the issue which the AMX M4 and the AMX M4 51 and 54 are facing. So I don't know what Wargaming is going to do with this tank, if it will be frontline reward, ranked reward, anything else, we sadly do not know. There are already so many tier 9 tanks in the game files which are getting tested and being used right now. Or not used right now, like the concept one, be the Object 752, the UDES 03, Alt 03, the K91 2. There are many, Stritzwagen K, so many tanks. But yeah, that's the Lorraine 50t. What do you think about this tank? Do you think it's a good idea that Wargaming gives him trash DPM to compensate for an impenetrable turret with no real cupola weak spot? Do you think the armor is great? Do you think it is too good for its speed? And as always, if you're new to the channel, let me know. And well, feel free to subscribe if you always want to be up to date with everything World of Tanks related. My name is RagingRaptor, thank you for watching, and cheers guys, I'll see you on the battlefield.